All right, Pete Giuliano, it is Saturday, the 26th of June, 2021. That makes this Solder Smoke
231. Crank it in, Ralph. 231. Crank it in.
All right, crank it in, Ralph. 231. This is our annual Field Day special edition. Pete and I are, as is our custom, ignoring the Field Day activities. We are both situated in the comfort of our air-conditioned ham shacks, enjoying peace, tranquility, and a freedom from mosquitoes. Good luck to you, those of you who are out there practicing for I don't know, Armageddon, an emergency. You're out there preparing and ready to go. So anyway, I do have some field day related stuff to talk about, Pete. First of all, travelogue. We were actually traveling. We actually did some traveling. We went from the sit situation, stay in the shack, to actually going out and getting on an airplane and taking a trip. We went down to the Dominican Republic to visit my wife's elderly parents. My wife hadn't been able to do this for about 15 months, so we were pleased to be able to do that finally. And we got down there, and I brought with me a little portable rig.
Ooh.
I brought an SST. I think it's the Super Simple Transceiver. It's a little 20-meter crystal-controlled CW rig. Puts out about 1 or 2 watts. It was given to me by my friend Bob Scott, KD4 EBM, and he sent it to me, and then I looked at it and I said, wow, this is really something. It was designed by Wayne Burdick, N6KR, and it's a neat little rig. It's built around the NE602 chip. Very, very simple in design, and really a lot of fun. I made a few contacts with it here on the workbench, and then I decided to just throw it in the bag when we were going down to the Dominican Republic, and I brought it with me. Made one contact, only one, because you had mentioned that band conditions are pretty lousy. So even with bad band conditions, and with an end-fed half-wave antenna tuned with a QRP guy's end-fed half-wave tuner, I was able to get on the air. I was able to make one contact from the eastern part of the island of Hispaniola, and that was pretty cool. The other guy was a QRP station also. And then I called CQ a lot, and I could see myself showing up on the reverse beacon network, but there were no other takers. So it was only a one-contact de-expedition to Hotel India Land. But it was fun. I noticed something, Pete. I noticed, as I was sitting there forlornly calling CQ on CW with the SST, I kind of noticed that there was a lot of activity not in the CW portion of the band, not a lot of activity in the phone portion of the band, FT8. It's I don't know. I was kind of jealous because I was able, because I had a laptop with me, to take a look at the WebSDR transceiver of NA5B, Mehmet, who's up here in Washington. So I could see what was going on the bands, and like I said, not a lot of activity on the CW portion of the band. Certainly not a lot in the QRP portion of the 20-meter band. There was a lot more activity down around 14030, but if you go up around 14060, which is where the QRP portion of the band is and where I have the SSC set up to operate, just not a lot there. I mean, not a lot. And then I would look on Mehmet's waterfall, and you go up around 14073, whereas the FT8 portion of the band. Holy cow! So many signals there. I was thinking, geez, I wish I had FT8. I could talk to people. So I don't know. It may be. I've been resisting FT8. I think I made a couple contacts with it once, but for portable operations like this, it might be the way to go. So
the real eye opener is to go on 17 meters.
Yeah.
18.1.
Yeah.
You'll think the band is dead, and you only see one spot on the spectrum, 18.1, and that thing is loaded with FT8. There's no CW signals, no phone signals, but FT8.
Wow. I mean, it's something to think about, especially on portable operation like this. Now, you need to have a computer with you. I have a little Chromebook, but I don't think I could get FT8 on a Chromebook. What?
You Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, I would. That's what I'm thinking. Another little box, perhaps the size of the SST. The SST is about the size of a deck of cards or a pack of cigarettes.
You know, you can get the TreatX display that plugs right into the Raspberry Pi.
Uh-huh.
So it only adds about an eighth of an inch to the top of it. That's the display. So you have
Wow.
the whole computer palm of your hand.
Wow. So I have two little boxes, one with the SST that I would modify for the right frequencies, and then the other would be the Raspberry Pi, which would run the computer and everything else. So
Yeah.
that'd be pretty cool.
And you can get a keyboard that fits in your shirt pocket.
Oh man. So I might be in business. That might be my next kind of portable kind of field day operation. Now, when we were out on the eastern portion of the island, we were in a house, and so we had a little yard, and I was able to throw the antenna up into one of the palm trees, and that was kind of fun. But conditions weren't great. But by the time we moved into Santo Domingo, the capital, and we were in an apartment up on the 12th floor. The view was spectacular. I mean, I had a great view to the west, but you're in there close to the building, and I managed to stretch the antenna, the end-fed half wave out along the balconies without disturbing the neighbors or incurring the wrath of the building management or anything like that. But it was just not. I was just not getting out. I called CQ a lot, and I was only picked up by one skimmer, one reverse beacon network skimmer up in the United States. So that was kind of fun to see that, but. Man, I think sitting there pounding CW on a homebrew straight key and not getting any answers is kind of disheartening. Whereas I think the FT8 would be a lot more rewarding. So we'll have to give that a try.
Well, the other advantage is when you're only operating a single frequency, like on CW, but
Yeah.
FT8, that frequency everybody uses.
Yeah. And the SST is crystal controlled. It has some tuning in there. You can wiggle it. It's a little bit of a varactor tuning going on in there. But it would be, I think, if you got the right crystal at around 18, you need a crystal around 18 megahertz. So I'd have to see about how to put that thing on the on the FT8 frequency. But wow, look at this, Pete. We're sliding into FT8 here. Kind of scary. Hey, I have other news to report. Other little bit of travel on our part. We went up to Pennsylvania, to your old homeland up there, Pete. And we did it to buy a dog.
Ooh.
Our Capucho, who accompanied us here for many years, for 10 years on the podcast, died back in November. And so I don't know. I thought we might never get another dog here, but my wife started. Oh, she's a dog person. She needed a dog. And so I kind of insisted. I said, look, it just can't be a big dog anymore. I can't handle a 75-pound dog. So we went to the other extreme, and we got the smallest, tiniest little dog you could imagine. It's a Maltese. And this thing is going to be 6 pounds or 7 pounds max when it's fully grown. So it's a tiny little thing. But he's really beautiful. His name is Guapo. Guapo in Spanish normally means like handsome, but it also can mean kind of angry or angry or handsome, depending on the context. So he's Guapo, and I will put a picture of him up on the blog.
He's a
when
cute
we post
dog.
this thing. He's beautiful. And he's really nice, and he's small. He's easy to operate with, and so that was our other trick.
So was this a breeder that you got?
Yeah, we went up. We found a breed. It's really hard to find dogs now. I mean, it's amazing. There seems to be, I don't know if it's related to the pandemic or what, but it's hard to find dogs. And so we had to travel quite a bit. It's like a 2-hour drive up to Pennsylvania to pick up the dog and bring him back. But anyway, we got that done, and so now we have Guapo from Pennsylvanian Guapo here with us, and I'm sure he'll be sitting with me in the shack. Right now he's out sitting with Elisa, but I'm sure he'll be with me here in the shack for a while. Anyway, we also had another major event was Father's Day. You and I both celebrated Father's Day, and I know many others out there in our listening audience did also. And I had a great Father's Day. Well, actually, it was on Father's Day was the day we went up to get Guapo. So I think, in a certain sense, Guapo was my Father's Day present. But I also got a tiny SA, the Spectrum Analyzer, little tiny
Nice.
SA. So my workbench has improved. I haven't been messing with it too much, but I've been looking at a couple of videos. I've really been working more with the Nano VNA, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I noticed, Pete, you got a nice Father's Day gift too.
Yes.
The glasses.
Glasses.
Man,
A new chick magnet.
holy cow! If you wear the beret and the glasses, and we had somebody write in talking about how you could get a little emblem, like a radio emblem that would go on the
Yes.
beret. Man, we might have to alert the authorities there at Newbury
Yes.
Park. This could be, could create civil unrest.
Yeah. Well, I got the sunglasses, a pair of Ferragamos from my son in New York.
I saw them; they looked really snazzy.
And when I first got the box, I said, "What's he doing? Buy me a pair of O.J. Simpson gloves?"
Well, you're out there in California, you know.
Yeah. So then I looked, and he said, "Wear these. You'll get noticed."
Wow, yeah, they're quite stunning. Hey, listen, I don't want to go into details, but you sent a picture earlier. You were wearing like kind of a blue Hawaiian shirt. That was one of the best pictures that, and I think Dean commented on it also. One of the best Pete Giuliano pictures we've ever seen. That was
Oh, with
really
my
good.
granddaughter?
With the new granddaughter. I'm glad you mentioned it. She's beautiful.
Yes.
And man, you look so happy sitting there with your granddaughter. Dean, I called Elisa and I said, "Come in, take a look at Pete. Look how great he is here. He's with the granddaughter." And she said, "Oh, it's a wonderful picture." And then Dean immediately chimed in and said, "What a fantastic picture."
There's an interesting story about that. I'm holding my granddaughter, and so I'm saying to my son and my daughter-in-law, I said, "I'm going to share something with you." And to my little granddaughter, Luca Jade, I said, "Now, you need to listen to your mom and dad because they're going to provide you wisdom and counsel, and they're going to set you right, and you need to always listen to them. But you need to listen to your grandpa for some of the life's things on the life's path." And I said, "When it comes down to it, marry the guy with the money."
Oh. I knew the zinger was coming there anyway, but it looked like we had some great family gatherings now that we're sort of out of SITS territory, hopefully. Anyway, so I'm glad you got together with everybody there, Pete. And those glasses, like I said, they're really, really cool. All right, time to start talking about radio.
Yes.
Why don't you go first? You've had a lot of activity, Pete. What's going on?
Well, it's like a potpourri. I did pick up a really inexpensive Drake T4X, and then I found an R4A, and I put them together. And, that's kind of a problem when you buy older gear, especially gear that's 50, 60 years old. You get them for these bargains, but you always got the lid open and you got the screwdriver in there and you're fixing something. Some people who fix stuff don't do a very good job. Like I found in the R4A, there were a lot of substituted parts. There were a couple of transistors in there. The prior owner couldn't find them, and he just slapped anything in there. And of course, it sort of worked, but not worked real well. So you spent a lot of time under the hood. Like, for instance, with the AVC off, it worked. Put the AVC on, the receiver goes dead. Yeah, same. Well, it works, but the AVC, so there was a transistor in there that controls the fast and slow. He had a sub in there, and after a while, it was on a ragged edge, and it blows. So, you just go nuts with stuff like that. And so also I did finish my version of the Spilsbury Tyndall SBX 11A.
The Spilsbury Tyndall, man. It sounds sort of like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah, it does. So I spent a little time in that. And, when you spend time in the shack, you went through this, you fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You work a lot of stuff. And I convinced myself if I was going to get on field day, I wouldn't do it with the Drake line. I'd use the Collins. The Drake line, even though all the stuff that I did, the receiver's noisy. There's some things in there he must have done that I haven't found as yet. But you put on 20 meters and the signals are masked by the receiver. You put the Collins on and you can hear the signals. So a lot more work, and it's just like, I
know. It's sort of like, I hate to say it, but it's sort of like I don't know, you taking on other people's problems and mistakes that other people made and trying to
Yeah.
kind of detect them and go through them and everything else. I mean, having something broken and finding the fault is a kind of a cool troubleshooting project. But then having to go back and undo the bad
Yeah.
mods and repairs made by somebody
Yeah.
else or several other people, that can be kind of
Yeah.
frustrating.
But I do want to share with you, we talk about homebrew versus kit building. I want to share with you about a kit building experience I had, and it has nothing to do with radio. It was the Weber Spirit E310 grill. I have never seen a kit like this before from Weber Barbecue. I needed to get a new barbecue because we're going to have a small 4th of July event. Bill, this came in a box that had so much packing in it. I don't know how they got all the stuff in there. And the instruction manual was absolutely superb. Was reminding you of the early Heath kits. All the parts fit. You fit tab A in slot B, and it fits, and it lines up with the bowl hole. And so when I got done, I had a bag of parts left, and I said, "Uh-oh." And then I looked at the bag. It says, "These spare parts are provided to you in case you lost something or missed something." They even packed the spare parts in there, which makes it kind of nice. The form, fit, and function are just absolutely amazing. And in instruction set, I'm very sensitive to, when I worked in aerospace, we'd got guys that write planning paper that you get 2 steps down the line, and to make the next install, you have to take apart what you did 2 steps ago because it's in the way. And none of that. They had 47 pictures, and you do the 47 pictures, and it goes together, and you put the last bolt in, it's the last bolt. You didn't have to undo anything. I just never have seen anything like this.
Sounds like they hired some guys from Heathkit or the Heathkit techniques.
No, they hired guys that build stuff. They hired guys that, some guy didn't sit in front of a computer and say, well, put this thing together. Some guy actually built it and then documented what they did. And I wish the ham kits were like that, because they're not. And a lot of even the ham kits, some of the parts don't fit on the board. So, I mean, my hat's off to Weber.
All right. A good kit building experience there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, but speaking about instructions to build things, you've got an article in Sprat.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about that, because I have my current issue of Sprat.
187.
Summer 2021. If you're not subscribed, Pete, what's the answer?
You're wrong.
That's it. You're just wrong. And we've gotten a lot of people who are now on the path towards righteousness as a result of us putting that. I'm opening up here to page 4, Direct Conversion Receiver Project by Pete Giuliano, N6QW. And it says here, this direct conversion receiver occurred accidentally. In Solder Smoke podcast number 224, Bill Mara mentioned the fine work of Paul Taylor, VK3HN, who built a 4-band rig based on a part of the project found in solid state design for the radio amateur. Luckily, Paul found an assembly at a radio rally composed of an IF module, 2x40673 gigabit module, and a transmitter mixer stage, MC1496 double balanced mixer. Boom! Time to think about using the MC1496 IC, eh? Good stuff.
Hey, look at the front cover.
I'm looking at the front cover.
Okay, and what do you see on the front cover?
I see basically the 16 by 2 LCD with looks like an Arduino and an SI5351. Yeah.
That's the wiring diagram. So I got an email from a guy who says, you didn't tell me how to wire this thing up. I said, look at the front cover.
Do I have to draw you a picture? I already did.
I have had 50 requests for the code. And it's primarily from the UK, Germany, France, Italy, couple in the US. And the guys, it's really interesting, because what caught their attention was not only the direct conversion receiver, but the fact that you could use an Arduino with it. And some see this as a stepping stone to be able to start to work with the Arduino. And what convinced them is when they listened to the YouTube video and they listened to the receiver and how good it sounded. So they got taken by it.
There you go. And I mean, you got so much response. And I like your technique that you hold back on the code until somebody writes to you, right? and that way you know who's actually building it.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for guys to just, yeah, I'll look at it. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. But no, when they actually have to write to you and ask for the code. So wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. There's 30 guys in the UK building this thing, and I keep saying to them, you ought to form a users group.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at something like this. I was reading I was thinking about Dean, because Dean's got this building group there at Vienna Wireless Society that's really doing great things with your simple SSB transceiver. But there's a long history of this. In the early days of ham radio, in the early days of single sideband, there was a guy, God, I forget his call, but he was an optometrist. He was one of the early builders of SSB rigs. It wasn't Tony Vitale. It was another guy of the same generation. And this guy was building SSB rigs, and he decided that he wanted to build it with other people, but there were so few people doing it at the time that he ended up working with guys in South Africa. So this guy was up in New Jersey, and they were building SSB rigs, and his sort of builders group included a bunch of guys in South Africa. I'll get the info and put it up on the blog when I post this. But it just sort of kind of reminded me of the happiness of building stuff in conjunction with others. So I'm glad you got a whole bunch of you got a loyal following there who are going to be experiencing the joys of direct conversion.
I actually talked to some of the Sprat guys, and they said, you got 50 people request for code. He said, that's kind of a record.
That's pretty darn good. And the direct conversion receiver, I like you said, listening to it, it makes you a believer. I have a little experience with this because one of my early double sideband rigs was a little portable rig that I would take with me. Again, a field day theme here. I would take this little thing. It's about the size of a book. And I would take it with me down to the Dominican Republic, took it to France, been a few other places. At times it was on 17 meters. At times it's on 20 meters. It's on 20 meters now. But I was looking at it. After we came back from the Dominican Republic, I was thinking, where is that thing? And I kind of pulled it off the shelf and dusted it off. I applied power. Man, I was listening to that thing. It's a direct conversion receiver. It sounds so good. And it's based on an article out of Sprat. And it uses nothing but NE602s and LM386s. And it's really, really nice. And so I was thinking about your direct conversion receiver. And you get the presence, Pete. You feel close to the ether. You do. You really do. So good luck with everybody who's building that. And wow, congratulations to you for making the cover on the like we talk about the cover of the Rolling Stone, the cover of the Sprat magazine.
It's also a wiring diagram.
The thrill that'll hit you when you get your picture on the cover of Sprat. Excellent. Anything else, Pete? Anything else happening on the bench?
No, but I may be toying with the idea of building a companion transmitter to go with it.
Oh, there you go. Will it be double sideband?
No. CW.
CW. Okay. All right. CW. I don't know. Kind of out of character there, Pete. I suggest you should do double sideband. Do a double sideband transmitter to go with it. It'd be so easy because you've already got the oscillator running at the operating frequency. All you need is a balanced modulator, a mic amp, and some RF amplification. That would be a big hit because there's so many guys now who are getting into it who are never really going to learn CW. But if you say, hey, this is a phone rig, a simple phone rig, it's so simple to add a double sideband transmitter to a direct conversion receiver. That's what you should do. I'm going to start a lobbying campaign. Everybody, write to Pete Giuliano. Tell him to do it.
And we could use another 1496 as the balance modulator.
There you go. Now, the 1496 has got a Gilbert cell in it, right? Is it a Gilbert cell?
Yeah, a Gilbert cell, yes.
Well, that's been sort of causing me trouble. I think this is a good way to transition over to my portion of the workbench now, Pete.
Yes, go.
Because since we're talking about Gilbert cells, and we're talking about this double sideband transceiver that I built and the SST, all these rigs have NE602 chips in them. The SST is all about NE602s. My double sideband transceiver, NE602s. So many of the QRP rigs, NE602s, and they all have at their heart the Gilbert cell. Barry Gilbert designed this thing in the mid-'60s. And it was originally a chip that was going to go into early cell phones. It was going to be used in cell phones. The thing is that he wanted to do, what he was trying to do was to come up with the equivalent of a diode ring mixer. But he wanted to do it on an IC, so he couldn't have any big coils. Coils were the showstopper, because on a diode ring mixer, those coils, the input trifilar transformer and the output trifilar transformer, that's really where the heart of the mixing takes place. The multiplication by 1 and -1 takes place because of that interacting with the diodes that are being switched. But he needed something where you could have the same effect, but without the big, fat, ugly coils that couldn't fit into a little IC chip. So he came up with the Gilbert cell. I have always known that I don't really understand the Gilbert cell. I don't. And so of course, Gene Shepard's voice was echoing in the back of my head saying, you need to understand this thing. So I started trying to understand it. I think I'm mostly there, but I got to say, a lot of the written explanations that appear in the books and everything else, you could tell there's a lot of hand waving. You could tell when the guy who's explaining it, suddenly you realize, oh, wait a second, he doesn't understand it either. And he starts just saying, well, you just have to realize that because of the math, some indifference products come out. All right? Okay. Anyway, I'm still working on trying to get my head around the Gilbert cell. I'm almost there. The guy who's really been helping me is Alan, W2AEW, who I do think really understands it. But getting me to understand it is a little bit more difficult. So thanks to Alan for helping me with that. But anyway, I mentioned the SST transceiver, and we talked about that quite a bit. I also talked about the 20-meter double sideband rig. When I fired that thing up here on the bench, when I blew the dust off it, this is the 20-meter, sometimes 17-meter rig, I made 2 contacts right off the bat. I mean, there was a guy, I'm running like 2 watts double sideband on 20 meters. I hear this guy calling CQ for parks on the air, right? I don't care about parks on the air. But I grabbed my little Sony Walkman microphone. This is a microphone from a Sony Walkman. And I call him, and he comes right back. He says, oh, yeah, you're 5'8", 5'8", 5'7" here in, West Virginia or someplace. So then I wait, tune around again. I hear another station, another Parks on the Air station calling. Call him. I'm talking to a guy up in Connecticut. 2 tries, 2 watts, double sideband, 2 contacts. I figured I better quit while I'm ahead, so I put the thing back on the shelf. But it was fun. Another rig. This is the rig that I'm really working on now, Pete. You and I have been talking about it. The legend, the Mythbuster. And this really is all your fault, Pete Giuliano, because you were the one who alerted me to the VFO that was being sold on eBay. And it was the VFO out of a Yaesu FT101B.
Built like a battleship.
Yeah, it is. It's great. You wanted me to get it just because of the gears around the capacitor. But when the thing showed up, it had all the circuitry, and it was in pristine condition, and it's got the amplifier, it's got the whole oscillator, the whole VFO circuitry in there, intact. So I said, wow, this is pretty good. And I started thinking, what can I build with this? And around this time, we were talking again about the 9 megahertz, 5 megahertz combination and how this can get you both 80 or 75 and 20 meters. And I remember I first started thinking about this when somebody sent me a 9 megahertz filter, right? Not a 9 megahertz VFO. They sent me the 9 megahertz filter. And I said, aha, I can do it. I could be on 80 lower sideband and 20 upper sideband, and it'll be great. And I won't even have to switch the carrier oscillator. I won't have to switch filters. The miracle of sideband inversion will happen. Steve Snort Rosin Smith out there in California was the one who came and poured water on my parade. He said, no, it's seductive. You may think you can do it, but you can't. Now, if you switch them around and you have a 9 megahertz VFO and a 5 megahertz filter, then you can do it. So that's what I'm building. I'm going to take that VFO that you told me to buy that runs around 9 megahertz, and I have built a monster filter around 5.2 megahertz. I think I showed you a picture of it. 10 poles, 10 crystals. It's a monster. My goal is to have skirts so steep that not even the SDR guys will be able to recognize that I'm running an old-fashioned HDR rig. It's looking good, but it's still got a lot of work to do on it. I'm learning a lot. I'm integrating into the project the Nano VNA because as a home brewer, one of the problems I've always had is that it's difficult for me to measure the input or the output impedance of a stage. You know, I build something and I see in the article that it says that the stage should have an input impedance of 50 ohms or 1,000 ohms. And I really have to take the designer's word for it. It's difficult for me to measure that. How do you measure the impedance of a stage unless you have a vector network analyzer, which until recently cost, many, many kilobucks. Now, for $50, we all have the Nano VNA. And what I have been trying to do is hook up the Nano VNA and take a look into the amplifier circuits that I have in front of the crystal filter and coming after the crystal filter to see if I could get an accurate understanding of what kind of impedance the crystal filter will be facing as it looks into these different amplifiers at either end. I think I've figured it out. Now, the problem with this is unless you use the Nano VNA correctly, you could get wildly inaccurate readings. So it's kind of an interesting learning process. I'm working with the termination insensitive amplifiers that Wes Hayward and Bob Kopke wrote about back in 2009. They wrote about this because they were trying to encourage people who were building BitX style transceivers to incorporate termination insensitive amplifiers in there, because this is a better way to make sure that your crystal filter is getting the right impedance at either end, which is really important. Also, they talked about how these amplifiers will help you get the proper impedance for your mixer circuits, where it's also important. But okay, so I build the TIAs like I used to do, and then instead of just saying, yeah, okay, well, the article says that they should both be 50 ohms at either end, and that the impedance at the input won't be affected by the impedance that you hang off the output. That's the termination insensitivity. But now I'm going to actually test it. I'm going to take the Nano VNA. I have been doing this. I take the Nano VNA and I hook it up there, and I look at the Smith chart presented by the Nano VNA, and I can see what the input impedance is. Again, I have to be careful because I want to make sure that I'm using the Nano VNA properly, that I'm calibrating it properly, that I have the right kind of patch cord leads going into it, so it's given an accurate reading. But it's kind of fun, and I think it's educational. So I'm at the stage where I've built the filter, 10 poles, using Dishal and the AADE software to tell you, and the G3UUR method, the little method where you switch in about 35 PF and you take a look at how it changes, how much it shifts, and from that you can get the motional parameters, the motional capacitance, and from the motional capacitance and the frequency, you get the motional inductance, right? Now all you need really is the equivalent series resistance. Chuck Adams has a great technique for this, where you just put it at the resonant frequency, and then you look on your scope and you set the signal generator at, say, 10 millivolts, right? Then you take the crystal out, replace it with a pot, about a 200 ohm pot. And then with the same scope, the same signal coming out, you adjust the pot to 10 millivolts on the scope. Then you take the pot out, you measure the pot. That gives you the equivalent series resistance. Brilliant. I mean, it's really pretty cool. So anyway, I get the parameters and I start plugging them in to Dishal and to the AADE software, and they're going to tell you what kind of capacitors you need to put across the crystals to get the band pass that you want. So I'm shooting for about 2.7 kcs wide. And I know with 10 poles, the skirts are going to be really steep. So I plug it in there and I get one set of values, and I think they were calling for like 56 PF. I'm using the cone topology. The benefit of the cone is that you don't have to buy a whole bunch of different capacitor values.
They're
all
all
the
the same.
capacitors are the same. Constant K, all right? So I plug them in there, and I sent you the picture when I first built this filter, and the skirts looked really good. But you know what didn't look good? The bandwidth. It was a little bit too tight. Using the values that I got from AADE, instead of yielding 2.7 kcs wide, it was yielding about 2.3 kcs wide, which is a little bit tight. So hey, no problem. I go and I say, okay, I'm going to lower the capacitance a bit. I lower the capacitance a bit. I kind of play with the values in Dishal and AADE, and I send an order into Mauser. Send me 15 capacitors of a lower, dropping down to about 47 picofarads. So this widened it out. I'm at about, but didn't widen it out quite enough. It widened it out to about 2.6 kcs. Still a little bit too tight. I might leave it. I could live with 2.6 kcs. I mean, I'm not an enhanced single sideband kind of wide signal kind of guy. And again, I'm trying to emulate the narrow filters of the enhanced SSB guys. But I did order another set of capacitors, so I might change the capacitors on this filter yet a third time. The other thing I do is I hook up the termination insensitive amps at both ends, and I calculate how much loss I have in the crystal filter. Dean asked about the insertion loss, because it looks like there'd be a lot. Wow, there's 10 crystals sitting in it. It's got to go through 10 crystals. The insertion loss on the filter is only about 2 dB.
Wow.
All right? Yeah. And that was predicted by Dishal, AADE, and my own testing on the bench. What I do is I take a resistor. I've got it terminated for 50 ohms at either end with transformers. I mean, the filter itself needs something like 500 ohms. It's got a 500 ohm characteristic impedance, so it needs 500 ohms at each end. But I make these little transformers so it goes 500 to 50, 500 to 50 at both
19
sides.
turns tapped at the 6th turn.
Yeah, exactly right. Right, exactly right. I didn't tap it. I just put a secondary winding at 6 turns. Yeah, right. You got it. So, the way I'd measure gain is I'll take a 50 ohm resistor and put the signal generator across it and the scope across it. Adjust the signal generator again to about 10. Maybe 50 millivolts. Then take the signal generator off, put the signal generator across the input of the crystal filter, and put the same 47 ohm resistor at the other end of the filter. And then measure how much voltage appears on the same resistor at the other end of the filter with the same input from the signal generator. So I'm looking at signal just across a 47 ohm resistor versus signal going through the filter and then appearing at the same 47 ohm
difference.
resistor. It was 2 dB. So 2 dB loss, 2 dB insertion loss. And then each of the TIAs, the termination insensitive amplifiers that I'm using, are supposed to be at around 23 dB gain. All right? And sure enough, I put the whole thing together and I measure it from end to end, and it's supposed to be like 43 dB. All right? And I end up, and then I measure it using the same technique, and I measure about 40 or 41 dB, which I think is close enough. I mean, you might have some losses in there because of the transformers or some other mismatches or something in there, but close enough. And so I'm thinking that I'm getting there, and it's good because I'm kind of improving my own kind of testing techniques and everything else. I want to really believe the nano VNA, but again, I don't know whether I'm using it right or not. And so it'd be really great because it would give us the opportunity to look into those circuits and actually measure input impedance, output impedance in a way that's really important. So I'm hoping that it works out. Anyway, I've been having fun with that.
And 40 dB is a lot of gain across 2 stages in a filter.
I know, but when you read about how people, when they design amplifiers, they talk about, like in the IF chain, they talk about sometimes putting like 80 dB in the IF system, and quite a bit. So I don't know. I mean, you think 40 is too much?
No. I'm saying for such little circuitry,
Yeah.
you're achieving a lot of gain. No, for instance, if you use just a simple Plessy 2 transistors, either end,
Yeah.
they're good for about 17, so it gives you 34. And having only 2 dB loss in the filters is kind of amazing. Typically, you see about 6. So instead of 34, you'd see somewhere around 30 dB. So you're achieving 10 dB gain with the TIA amplifiers and a 10-pole filter, which is a lot. And I'm of the view, I think I vote with Hayward. Put the gain in the audio amplifier stages.
Yeah.
So you don't generate noise up in the front end and in the filter.
Definitely not in the Okay, definitely not in the RF amplifiers. All right. So anyway, good words of wisdom there, Pete. Anyway, that's what I've been working on the bench. And let me now just turn. I'm going to turn to the solder. It's time for Solder Smoke mailbag. I think I am. Let me see. Hold on. Let me check the list here. Dish out. Yep. All the stuff we were going to talk about. Oh yeah, I've also been using the Nano VNA to see the passband on the crystal filter. That's a really useful part of the Nano VNA. I could just put the input there and sweep it. That's how I know that the filter is a little bit too narrow or a little bit too broad. Anyway, we can check on that. So the Nano VNA has been really useful. This rig that I'm building for 75 and 20, I'm going to call it, I call it the Legend, but I'm going to call it the Mythbuster. And it's because of this myth that I was laboring under earlier on, where I thought that I could just get magically 75 LSB and 20 USB with this thing. With the myth, I was talking about the myth and why I'm calling this rig the Mythbuster. But I actually looked back. We were discussing this in Solder Smoke back in 2012. 2012, somebody had sent me the 9 megahertz filter, and I said, aha, I'm going to make this rig. It's going to be great. It's going to be LSB on 75, USB on 20, yay. And Steve, like I said, Steve Rogers Smith wrote back to me and said, not so fast. You can't do it that way. And then I put it up on the blog, and we had one or two guys come back and just sort of say, no, you can. And there was this big argument about it. So the argument continues to go on. But anyway, I'm going to build the Mythbuster rig, Pete, and it's all your fault because you told me to get this VFO. Anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I think there's a little bit of couching that goes on with the 5 megahertz IF and a 9 megahertz VFO and an upper sideband BFO. You get 20 meters upper sideband, and when you use that combination, you're going to copy lower sideband signals on 75 meters. And I said copy lower sideband because you get a sideband inversion, and you have to have the upper sideband crystal to demodulate it. So that's why you're copying lower sideband on 75 meters.
But the key, that's right. You're right, and because you have to have an upper, you have to change the crystal.
If you do it the other way, you do copy lower sideband, but you have an upper sideband crystal.
That's right.
So with the 9 VFO and a 5 IF, one crystal will let you copy upper sideband on 20 and lower sideband on 75. But you do get lower sideband with the other way around, except you have this upper sideband crystal. It's not going to demodulate it. So
that's right.
So that's the difference.
There you go. All right, Pete, we have a really, really good mailbag, and there's been a lot of nice mail coming in. So let's get right to it.
Wait a minute.
Oh, that's right. What are you going to remind me of?
Your T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that now. That's right. I got...
Wait a minute. Shameless Commerce Division.
First, the Shameless Commerce Division. Yeah, all right. So Pete's reminded me. We got to do the Shameless Commerce Division here. Look, I think one of the best ways to help Solder Smoke is to go to the Amazon.com ad up in the upper right-hand corner. We've been talking bad about Bezos, but we found out that he's kind of a space nerd. He's volunteered. He's going to go be the first guy to fly up into space with his spaceship. So even makes us feel better about Bezos. But anyway,
You see the guy that paid $20 million to ride along with him.
well, Bezos is going too. Anyway, have Jeff Bezos send us some money. Just whatever you want to buy, Maseratis, McLarens, big expensive, vector network analyzers,
A
whatever.
real vector network at $5,000.
And spectrum analyzers too.
Yeah.
Not the $50 versions. The more the $5,000.
Roden Schwartz.
Yeah, those good ones. Get them, and through the upper right-hand corner of the Solder Smoke blog page, just start your search there, and it'll come. The money will come our way. Also, consider being a Patreon sponsor, a Patreon patron. We have that up in the upper left-hand corner of the blog. But something else, sort of similar to sort of promotional activity, came because a box arrived yesterday. Look at this, Pete. Look at the size of this box. Look how many of them there are. They're spilling out. There must be 200 of them in here. I have one attached to my T-shirt for Pete's benefit. I'll put a picture of it up on the blog. But it's a sticker. And the sticker was developed by our friend Jesse, November 5, Juliet Hotel. Jesse made up this wonderful sticker. And it's a small sticker. And it says, it's a quote from Pete Giuliano, the immortal words, "If you know stuff, you can do stuff." And then he's got a symbol. He's got a wrench and a soldering iron crossed, just like crossed rifles. And it says below it, IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electronic Wizards. That's us. Pete, I don't know if you noticed, did you see the Morse code on the wrench?
No, I didn't.
If you look at the Morse code, he has Morse code on the wrench.
Ooh. Wow.
IBEW in Morse. And then along the bottom, soldersmoke.blogspot.com. Okay. These are really cool stickers. I have one on my T-shirt. I put one up on my amplifier here, so it's permanently a part of the station. Now, we were thinking, what should we do with these things? Because you're going to get a batch of them too. You're going to have the West Coast batch. I've got the East Coast batch. I think that we, the Solder Smoke community, should make good use of these stickers. Obviously, it's fun to have one in the shack. Little inspiration, a little bit of Solder Smoke memorabilia, Solder Smoke bling here in the shack. But I think we should also look for non-vandalism opportunities to place these stickers in places where it might influence people who might be interested in this kind of stuff. I don't know, physics labs, double E laboratories, Hamfest locations, electronics stores,
Radio
places
clubs.
like this. Where?
Radio clubs.
Radio clubs. Just take one of these stickers and put it there. So somebody will start looking at it and say, hey, what is this business about? If you know stuff, you can do stuff. IBEW and the soldersmoke.blogspot, they'll be sucked in. I could hear them come. Soon they'll be subscribing to Sprat Magazine, and they'll be fully on board with the IBEW. So let's do it this way. If anybody wants a couple of these stickers,
Self-addressed stamped envelope.
send a self-addressed stamped envelope to me. You can find my address on qrz.com, and I will send you at least 2 of these stickers from Jesse. Now, the deal is you could put one for your personal use in your own individual ham shack, but then you got to find an appropriate place to stick it so that it will get somebody. I mean, we're very kind of broad-minded in what might be an appropriate place. A bar in Silicon Valley, where we know that techno, nerdy kind of people go. Put it up there on the mirror in the bar. You never know the influence that these stickers could have. Thank you very much, Jesse, for sending them to us, for immortalizing, Pete's observation about knowing stuff and doing stuff. And we will get them out there. They will be launched around the world.
I love it.
Thanks, Jesse.
Hey,
All right, the mailbag.
maybe we needed to give it to JPL or NASA.
There you go. It should be at JPL. Or put it on one of the rovers.
Yeah,
Heading out to Mars.
yeah.
We stick it on a telescope. The James Webb telescope's getting ready to go up.
Yeah.
I would hate to think it'd be bad if it goofed the whole thing up. You don't want that. All right, Pete. Solder Smoke mailbag. We got some really good stuff here. Bill N2VSD wrote to tell us that he was inspired by the podcast to start melting solder, start home brewing. We seem to have gotten a lot of that. It may have been our work during the pandemic, during the lockdown. Moses, what a great name, Moses, K8TIY. He really was inspired by the whole thing, and he has subscribed to Sprat and is melting solder in earnest. As he said, he also listens to the podcast with his 2-year-old son. The 2-year-old son likes listening to it too. All right, very good. Thanks for writing to us, Moses, and hope you continue to enjoy the show.
Well, is that the one that says "Crank it in, Ralph"? The kid says "Crank it in, Ralph."
The kid chimes in and says, "Ralph, crank it in." Wonderful stuff. Then we got an email from a guy who doesn't even have a license yet. But I said he's from the UK. But I said he should be given a license just based on this project. He took an old satellite receiver, and that he didn't even really know much about, but just started taking parts out of it. And then, inspired by solder smoke, he built a 20-meter receiver and got it on the air, got it working. We put a post up this on the blog. I think a broader audience. I'm trying to get it on Hackaday, but Tom's got to send me some stuff that we can link to. So, but Tom, really congratulations.
It's got an amazing LED display.
LED display, got the whole thing, and this was his first project.
Yeah.
He'd never built anything before. Whoa. Watch this guy. He's got real potential here. Adam N0ZIB. Yeah, he began his message with kind of a sentiment that we do get fairly often. He begins, "Curse you, solder smoke." Sometimes we get it in even harsher terms.
Your design sucks.
The code doesn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, but he says he thanks to us, he has subscribed to Sprat, and now that he's receiving Sprat, he feels obligated to build many of the projects in that fine magazine. So this is why he's cursing us for condemning him to a path of homebrew righteousness.
Hey, by the way, if I can interrupt you here, they're going to have another virtual convention, Sprat, September 4th and 5th. That's just to kind of let you know here. To crank that into your schedule, just like they did last year.
Oh, excellent. We'll have to tune in for that one. Very good. We got an email from Germany, DL6ID Joe. He wrote in response to my talking about the cicadas here, and he found a clip where Gene Shepard, way back when, was talking about. He thought it was cicadas, 17-year insects, but what Shepard was describing, I found out, was really locusts. 17-year locusts, and he described, seeing 17-year locusts come out and attack, I guess, his town out there in Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, when he was a kid. The cicadas we got are far more benign. They didn't destroy any vegetation. They don't appear like a big cloud. They're kind of annoying after a while. They're gone now. Good thing. People were getting kind of sick of them. But locusts are also on a 17-year cycle. They also under the ground, but they behave far differently than the cicadas that we had. We're not going to see our cicadas now for another 17 years. Good thing. But sort of related to this, Joe asked about some questions about the buzz knot noise blanker in the SST. I got a number of questions about that, but I tried to help these guys out. A lot of guys are interested in the SST. A lot of guys have home brewed their own SST. Paul Taylor made his own SST. Many others have done the same thing. Really a cool circuit, and I guess that kind of replication, as you know, Pete, is a really great form of flattery. Really good. All right, Jason N2NLY. He wrote I had posed the question about if you have a VFO that runs around 8 or 9 megahertz, and you want to get on 80 and 20, what's the appropriate IF? And I mistakenly said that nobody gave us the right answer. I was wrong. Jason, N2NLY, he got the right answer, but he sent it to me on Twitter, on a direct message on Twitter, which I didn't see because I'm not really good with Twitter. But anyway, Jason got it right. Thank you very much. And another guy got it right, and I defamed him. Peter, VK2EMU, he got it right also. I did see his message, but somehow I said that he got it wrong. He got it right. I was under the influence of pain medication at the time because of my bad back and leg problem, which is completely resolved, by the way. But, Peter, I blame the meds.
Hey, did you hear that they're in lockdown again down in Australia?
I know, and a lot of places, too.
Yeah, he was saying they put the mask back on. They canceled a lot of events. It really hardened the young people. They were just hoping this stuff was over, but there they are again.
Here we are again. Yep, I know. Good luck to them down there. Speaking of South Africa, we were talking about South Africa earlier. Wouter, ZS1KE, he tried to come up with an explanation of the LSB USB convention. Why do we operate LSB below 10 megahertz and USB above 10 megahertz? And he repeated something that I've seen many times, and that is this: there was an ITU regulation that dealt with transatlantic telephone circuits using like independent sidebands, like 4 independent sidebands over 2 channels. And they were trying to prevent interference on these commercial circuits. So they decided LSB, USB, this convention. And that's sometimes pointed to as the reason for this kind of convention. I don't really quite buy it. When you read the reg, it doesn't really have anything to do with ham radio. And one thing about this regulation, if it was actually the regulation, you would have seen something in QST or other magazines saying, oh, okay, because of this regulation, we have to do it this way. I think it's still a mystery why we have this convention. I just know that the myth about a 9 megahertz signal generator or a 5.2 megahertz signal generator and a 9 megahertz filter is not quite it. So
that's
anyway,
CCIR 294 is what you got to find.
Yeah, I found it, and I'm not quite sure that's it. It's still a mystery why we have this convention. We don't really even have the convention, as we know, because people who operate on AM are on both sidebands, right? And you can go on upper sideband on 75 meters. It's completely legal. It's just not done. You can if you want.
Irritates the 75 meter crowd.
It's deeply painful for them. I don't know why. Let's see who else we got from Dan AF70 is building a Michigan Mighty Mite George Dobbs style on a board, Ladybird style. I think I put this up on the blog. Really good stuff. Thanks for writing in about that, Dan. Farhan, you mentioned conventions. The 4 days in May they had a virtual event, and the videos have been posted. Farhan has one which was really great. I mean, really good, talking about kind of combining SDR and HDR, taking his micro BitX and adding SDR signal processing circuitry to it. Really good stuff. Check that one out. Also, Dino, our friend down there in Williamsburg, has a great piece on inexpensive test gear that you could use. And Hans Summers wrote in about low-cost, low-impact, round-the-world ballooning and some of the circuitry that they use with that. I really liked all 3 of those FDIM videos. And I think if you just go to YouTube and search for FDIM archive, you'll find these videos. We got
any more word on his sideband version of the CW?
I haven't heard anything from him on the QSX. It's been, I haven't heard anything about that at all. So I'm not sure where Hans is on that. Jack, NG2Y, is, I think I got his call correct. Anyway, our friend Jack here from Northern Virginia has actually put together, he was the one who built the Michigan Mighty Mite. And now he's built a 10-minute transmitter, and he actually went out and made a contact with it. He actually had a QSO with his 10-meter transmitter on 40 meters. Fine business, Jack. I think it's NG2E. NG2E, I think is the call. Farhan. Farhan sent us a nice note that it's always amazing when you can actually share some information that a guy like Farhan finds useful, because Farhan, like you, Pete, he already knows everything. I mean, it's the electronic knowledge is really impressive, but he needed some info on how best to put screw threads in a piece of metal, and he was Googling, and he came to the video in which I described how you told me how to do this and how to put the oil and turn it a little bit, make sure you put enough oil. And so Farhan did not follow the advice, and of course he broke
a tap.
He broke the tap. And so he looking back on it, he said, it's true, always listen to Pete. And I told him, I said, Farhan, that's it. You got to always listen to Pete, all right? But it was cool that he went back and consulted with our videos. We're honored, all right? And then Peter, OK1RP, Oscar Kilo 1 Radio Papa in the Czech Republic wrote to me. He posted on Facebook that he needed a schematic for the BuzzNot noise blanker for the SST. This is pretty esoteric stuff. I mean, the SST is an old, transceiver from the mid 90s, and then like an adjunct, they put out this little noise blanker called the BuzzNot. And OK1RP was intrigued when he heard about it, and he obviously wanted to build one, but he needed information on the circuit. Now, Bob Scott, KD4 had sent me the complete documentation, including the documentation on the BuzzNot. So I pulled out my phone, I took pictures and sent them to Peter at his qrz.com address. So it was kind of cool to be able to provide this support to a ham far away who was trying to figure out how to get a BuzzNot going over there. I hope it works out for you, Peter. Also, how many Peters do we have? So many Petes and Peters. There seems to be, there seems to be a connection there. That's all I can say. Pete, we are reaching the end of this edition of Solder Smoke. Do you have anything you'd like to share with our listening audience before we wrap this one up?
No, but if you feel so inclined to get bit by mosquitoes, take your rig outdoors and operate field day.
I might actually feel a temptation. I have my end-fed half wave. I might go out there with the SST. I don't know. You never know. The spirit might move me later.
Or the double sideband rig. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun too. It'd be a blast from the past. All right, yeah. but probably not. Happy field day, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, one final comment here. I've been still cruising around looking at stuff that's coming out. A lot of new radios coming out on the market. A lot of them are SDR. So I mean, come about Christmas, we ought to see lots of new stuff hitting the marketplace. Just amazing.
Good times. A good time to be in ham radio, Pete.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks for getting up so early in the morning out there on the left coast, Pete.
Yeah,
Good talking
you bet.
to you.
Yeah. Take care. Have a good week. We'll see you.
We'll see you. 7-3 from Northern Virginia.
7-3's from the left coast.
Ciao.
The Solder Smoke podcast is produced once or twice a month using roadkill computers in an electronics workshop somewhere in the wilds of Northern Virginia. The podcast is available via iTunes and directly from our website, soldersmoke.com. Our blog, the Solder Smoke Daily News, is at soldersmoke.blogspot.com. Send email to soldersmoke, that's one word, at yahoo.com. Solder Smoke is listener supported, and there are many ways you can help keep the podcast going. Please spread the word. Let your friends know about Solder Smoke, the podcast, and our blog. Put links to the podcast and the blog on your websites. Buy a copy of the critically acclaimed book, Solder Smoke, Global Adventures in Wireless Electronics, available from lulu.com. Begin all your visits to Amazon via the Amazon link on our blog page. In this way, Solder Smoke gets a commission from anything you buy on Amazon. Buy some of our attractive Solder Smoke t-shirts, coffee mugs, and bumper stickers at the Solder Smoke store at cafepress.com. If you have a small business, consider advertising on the podcast or on the blog. Our rates are reasonable and our staff is friendly. If none of this appeals to you but you still want to help, well, we have a donation button in the upper left-hand corner of the blog page. However you choose to help, we thank you for your support.
Ciao, bravi ragazzi!